Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Stephen Walter Live. We are live, and hopefully everybody can see us and everybody can hear us okay. And we'll just give everybody a few minutes to get in. Okay, hello everybody. Yep. Looks like that's working fine. So, who have we got here? Let's see. Judy was the first on today. Hello, Judy. Diana is here. 20 degrees less than yesterday. 84 degrees today. Oh, well, it's cooling off. Winter's coming to Texas. Hello, Stephanie. Gail is here. Diana, Heather, Suzanne, Derek. Glenna Miller is here. Barb. Lydia is here. And Karen. And yes, yeah. So Sue Norfleet is here. Good to know, Sue. Thank you. And we'll just see who else is going to join us. Designing Jay is here. That's Johanna. And Philippa. Hi, Philippa. She made it to today too. And Julie is here. And so Philippa, it looks like you got home safe and sound. That's good. For anybody who doesn't know, Philippa is in Australia. So right now it is Monday, and it's sometime Monday morning, sometime Monday afternoon. It's hard to keep up with it. I have to look up what it is what time it is in Brisbane right now, because that's where Philippa is from. Julie said she enjoyed the pop-up sew day. Glad you did, Julie. You are more than welcome. I always enjoy them and have a good time. Hi, Laura.
6:02 a.m.
Monday. So
September
yeah.
11th. September 11th. Ooh.
Yeah, well, that's Monday. Yeah, September 11th, yeah. What's significant about September 11th?
Yeah, the World Trade Center thing.
Oh, yeah.
You think
okay, yeah.
That? Geez.
I was thinking, when was my niece's birthday? That's not until the 15th. Shelly's here. Hello, Shelly. And yep, Philip was confirming us. Brenda's here. Hi, Brenda. And Judy. Okay, so and Shelly Clark. I think I missed Shelly there for a minute. Hi, Shelly. So let's get into things. So what I've been working on. Well, yesterday I had pop-up sew day, so some of you knew what I was working on and having some problems with. But then again, when don't I usually have a problem? And I'll just switch this over so you can see what I'm talking about here. So this is a Halloween quilt. And it was a quilt I wasn't going to make, but I saw the panel somewhere. And I really liked the panel. So I thought, well, I'll buy that, but I'll just do it with Halloween fabrics I've got laying around. Well, then I saw the fabrics that were suggested for this. And I kind of liked those as well. So I picked those up too, and yesterday I had everything cut before pop-up sew day yesterday, because my plan was to pretty much get as much of this done as I could. Well, any of you that were on the pop-up sew day heard my cursing and swearing, because why is it that I always get the patterns that have errors in them and they don't publish a correction sheet for it? There were some measurements. I mean, mind you, it wasn't a major problem, not like that one I did that's by Patty Carey, the patchwork one or whatever that she calls her company. Like, they're horrible. This one wasn't anywhere near as bad as that, but there were some minor problems with the designer's mathematics. But I made it work now, and there's a couple of little things I'm going to go over on Tuesday on the Idiot Quilter here, because this is not completely perfect. And by the way, this is not quilted, obviously. It's just the top. And then, of course, Walter took a look at it today, and he found something that isn't quite right. And I'm not going to point it out to you right now, because I'm not going to feed his ego on this one. All right? Maybe you can spot it. It's nothing I can fix either. It's not major, but it's there. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, because believe it or not, even though there's this error, which means there's a small piece missing out of it, for some reason the math worked. So this was weird because the math was not working according to this pattern. But anyways, I'll say more about this in detail on Tuesday's Idiot Quilter for those of you that are interested in that. And let's just get our stuff back here on the screen so we can see what's going on. So let's see. Yeah, Marilyn, I like the spooky house too. That's what attracted me to it. Plus, I had a couple of cats on it, so you know, and I like cats. Julie says it's actually a cat panel with some Halloween stuff in it. Or you could say it is a Halloween panel with black cats in it, which are traditionally Halloween images as well. Question from Gail. Off the subject, but has anyone else noticed the little button on every YouTube channel has a 104K like count? Huh? More details, Gail, because I don't know what you're talking about. Has anyone else noticed the like button on every YouTube channel has a 104K like count? No, I haven't. I'm not really sure what you mean. What we're looking at right now doesn't show anything like that, but we see a different screen than you do. But anyways, hi Cheryl, hi Dale. Yes, that's definitely true, Shelley, but the pattern did say how to trim up the panel, and that trimmed up fine. That's not where the problem is. I'll talk more about it though on Tuesday. Stacy's here. Hi, Stacy. Julie's got a question for you, Walter. How did your sew day with your group go? Well,
actually,
that's what we're coming to next.
Good. Should I go on?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, it went pretty good, except for the host, the guy that's hosting it, was feeling a little under the weather. I think he had a little too much to drink the night before, but he said he didn't.
Well, you also have to understand that he is a drag queen, and he did a drag show that night, the night before.
Yeah, so he was up late the night before, and so he wasn't feeling quite himself. But he hosted it anyway, and so the normal two people actually showed up, and there was another lady that showed up that sometimes shows up. And then another new person came that was not dressed as a witch. She was dressed normal. But she was sewing a straight jackets.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, you go to a sew day and sew a straight jacket. Yeah, doesn't everybody?
So, yeah, so it went okay.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I'm a little distracted here because I'm still trying to figure out what Shelley's going on about, because this doesn't make any sense to me, Shelley. I think you typed something wrong or something got left out. You go, nope. Mine shows. I see the missing piece, 7 likes. Okay. New episode coming up on our channel. I'm going to call it Teaching People How to Write. Good grammar counts. You know, kind of a thing. I'm confused, Shelley. Very confused. Hi, Faith. Hi, Colleen. Shelley, quit trying to analyze what's there. I know you believe you know everything there is to know about quilting. But I will reveal everything on Tuesday. I'm not going to talk about it right now, so drop it. Okay, Julie says, where would somebody get a pattern for straight jacket?
Well, actually, she didn't have a pattern. She sort of was doing it on the fly. So I'm not sure how well it was turning out, but she seemed to be happy with the result. I think it was just for costume. So for what she was doing, I guess she does drag shows as well. So.
Oh, well, okay. So there you go. But a lot of you wanted to know that we're on the pop-up sew dip yesterday, whether or not the witch had showed up.
No, the witch did not show up. The previous one I went to, there was a lady that came in. She was all dressed in black, and she had a pointed witch's hat on.
Okay, so there you go. She was a real witch.
That kind of threw me off.
Yeah, Julie, you think you saw it. You didn't see it. I'm not going to tell you about it. So, back off. You know, there's the ones that come on here that always try to second guess me, like they know everything kind of a thing. I think that's a woman thing over a man. I really do. Guess what? It's not going to work on this man. You want to know? I will reveal all on Tuesday. Yeah. Little teaser.
See you on Tuesday.
Okay, see you on Tuesday. Yeah. Okay, so that was how Walter's Sew Day went. And our pop-up sew day, I think it was a good day. We had about, I think at the height, we had about 29, 30 people join us. We did sort of video bomb Sean, the guy who shows. He was doing his live. He always does his live on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And I usually join in on those. I watch it. But, of course, when I do a pop-up sew day, I start those at 8 a.m. in the morning. And I can't do it. And then there was several of us on at that point, maybe about 5 or 6 of us. And I thought, I wonder, I'm on a Zoom, but what's stopping me from actually going in on another window on my computer into Sean's live, and then I'll just do it as a screen share in Zoom, and other people can see it and hear it at the same time while we're in this environment. So I tried it. That worked. But I don't think Sean understood, because we made a couple of comic remarks about, oh, we're video bombing you, Sean, or something like this. And of course, he was running his live and everything. I did write to him. Actually, I wrote to him this morning, got him answer back explaining what we were doing, because he was a little confused at what, and yeah, rightly so, because he couldn't see what I was doing. But anyways, it offers a potential. I said to Sean, you know, I don't know if we can ever do anything with this and why we would, but if somebody's running a Zoom at the same time I'm running a Zoom, we could have, because of screen sharing and that, there might be a way to connect the two Zooms together. It wouldn't actually be doing a Zoom where people could talk to each other across the Zooms, but we could see and hear what other people are doing. And I don't know if there's any potential for that or not. I'm always experimenting with things. So maybe I'll find an application for that somewhere down the road. But anyways, we did that for a few minutes. I didn't want to disrupt Sean's live when he's on there. And he had Shannon on there as well. Shannon here? I haven't seen Shannon today yet. So, but anyways, it was kind of an interesting experiment. Oh, Julie, you want to have the last word, don't you? Well, guess what? My sandbox, my thing. I always have the power of delete. You know about that. I'm just playing with you. Diane is here. Likes button only shows 3 on my page. Must be a delay in posting. Okay. I don't know why we're so hung up about the like button suddenly. Yeah, there would be a delay. There's about a 10-second to 12-second delay between what we see as we're doing this right now and what you see. It's about 12 seconds behind us, which does, and that applies to the like button, anything else, or the comments even. So, yeah. And yeah, it could be a fun experiment. We'll have to see. Anyways, so yeah, so Pop-Up Sew Day was good. When will the next one be? I don't know. Maybe towards the tail end of September. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're already at September the 10th, 1/3 of the way through the month with it. So maybe at the tail end. Did you find out when your next sew day is?
Yeah, when is your retreat?
21st of October.
It's 21st of October. So I'll probably
of course
stay
it is.
here.
Well, you can go away. You don't have to do anything. You know. So anyways. Yeah, Julie, I know. Okay, so yeah, well, while it's come up, yeah, October 21st is the retreat. I have not sent anything out yet about it. It'll be coming. In fact, probably this week, at the beginning of the week, I'm going to start putting everything together, and then probably towards the end of this week coming or the beginning of the next week, more likely the beginning of next week, I'm going to get everything out there, all the information, all the dates, how you sign up for it, what's planned for it, and all that kind of stuff will all come out then. And while we're talking about all of this, Stephanie, Sewing with Stephanie and Stephen, there will not be one this Wednesday. Stephanie's off to her retreat that day, and we're off to a place called Stratford, Ontario, which is a couple of hours to the west of us, because we've got tickets for a play for rent, and we're staying a couple of nights, and we're going to do some shopping too, because the town of Stratford has a really good quilt store in it. Haven't been there since what? We went last summer, didn't we?
Yeah, I think
At
so.
one point. Called the Yay Old Quilt Shop. Or is it Fabric Shop? No, I think it's a quilt shop. Anyways, there's that. And there's another couple of places I want to visit when we're out there as well. So, yeah, we're leaving bright and early Saturday morning. And so, no sewing with Stephanie and Stephen this coming Wednesday. It'll be back next week. And that's why you're not going to find a link for it in the show notes and anything I put up this week because of that. So, gives you a week off. Okay, so I think that's the announcements and everything. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's talk about why some of you probably got several emails from me this past week.
Oh no, here we go again.
Some people don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
Why don't you go just sit in a corner and play with yourself or something? I don't know. But your lip. Okay, so I had problems with email. I thought, turns out, it may have been more me than meaning my imagination than the reality. But anyways, that's why I asked you to send me a test email message if you got mine, and many of you did, and I really appreciated it. It helped me to figure out what the problem was, and the problem is fixed now. But one thing you're going to notice, my contact information, I have taken that out of the show notes. It is now in the About tab. So, across your screen, for anybody's YouTube video, you'll see, different things, playlist, community, and there's one that's called About. If you click on that and scroll down a little bit, you'll see contact information, and I believe it'll ask you to just prove you're a human by checking the little box that's there. Because what happens is there are scammers who have computerized bots, as we call them, that go in and scour information that's available on everybody's YouTubes. And if you put your email address up in the show notes, it can find it, it copies it, and then what they do is they send things out to unsuspecting people as if it's my email address, and it's coming from me, but it's not. So what I have found that's happening, there's a thing, this is called something. Let me show you. And just let me switch this. This is called, I have found out, being Pwned. Pwned. I have never heard that term before. But essentially what it is these scammers get a hold of your email address, and they send out under your email address all kinds of fraudulent things and scams and notices, to trying to get your personal information and things like that. And they do them in a mass mailing. So it can go out to hundreds of thousands of people. They're not necessarily people that are on my contact list. They don't have my contact list. All they have is my email address. And somehow they're able to make it look like the email is coming from me. So the idea is, if you saw an email coming from me, and asking you for something, if you didn't read it carefully, you might think it's legit. First of all, I will never ask you for your personal information if I send you an email. I only send out emails to let you know about what things are coming up. If there's a pop-up sew day or the retreat, okay, I don't ask you for anything else from that. So if you get something telling you that you've had something happen to your bank account or something like that, not me doing it. And just as a good practice, never to open any attachments from somebody you do not know or you're not expecting something. And I would never send you an attachment. All right. Now, when I say that, with the upcoming retreat, I will have a PDF file that just basically will go over everything that I will have said in a video about the retreat. But I won't send that to your email address. All I will send you to the email address is I'll tell you who I am and everything. You'll know it's from me. And I will give you a link to my Google Drive to pick up that document if you need it. And it'll be a PDF file. But I will make sure you know it's really from me. Okay? So just in case anything like that happens to you. But anyways, I've been pawned. And how do I know? Well, you can go and you can do this too on your own. You just go in and put in, have I been pawned? And pawned is spelt without the A in it, .com. And you plug in your email address.
So now everybody will know what your email.
Well, they know where they already know.
No, I mean on your, if somebody's viewing your video.
Walter's always very conscious of these things. Okay, I will plug it in and then show you what comes up. No, I can't because it'll show my email address. Okay, basically, all right, what happens is it told me that I've been pawned 14 times or something like that, and it shows all of the possible places that have had data breaches, which is another way that they get your information. And some of those places I don't go to, I'm not on them, but there are a couple that are. And one that's very interesting is Bell Canada. Bell Canada is my internet provider. And Bell Canada never says that they have ever had a data breach. They also claim that they never sell their mailing lists to anybody else. It's always private. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Okay? They do. They do sell it to companies and things like that. That's one of their business things that they have there. So, no. So basically, probably everybody that's even on here, at some point in time, you've had your email address pawned. Because that's life, isn't it? With scammers and things like that. So I thought you'd like to know about that. Let's see, what are people saying?
I don't know what Sandy Thompson was.
Oh, somebody new? Sandy Thomas? Oh, okay. I think we've got a little problem here. Sandy Thompson has some weird characters. We're just going to remove her because I've never seen that one before. Okay. Well, there she is there again, too. So we'll just get rid of that. Okay, so Sweet Granny's here. Oh, Sweet Granny has a question. Oh, and Mary's here and Patsy's here. Did I miss any? Barb? Did I miss anybody else? No, I think I got it. Okay, Mary, or no, Sweet Granny wants to know what's the latest on the window. Nothing.
Nothing. We don't have any information yet, so
we don't know anything. We've had no contact, but they told us it would be ordered and we'd have it 2 weeks ago.
No, they said I got a message that they're working on it and it's supposedly as soon as possible.
Yeah, as soon as possible means nothing.
Yeah.
Which, at the risk of having a domestic right here, my answer to that would have been, well, no, that's not good enough. I need a date. And I want a date. And I want that date by this date. And I said to Walter, we're giving them until the end of this month. I don't expect there's going to be anything positive on that. I want a face-to-face with the people at Aurora Windows who got our $18,000 for the job that they did and who tried to put this all back on us and the whole bit. I want a face-to-face. I don't want emails back and forth with them to say what I'm concerned about. I don't want telephone calls because, you see, that is a wall. When you go through a computer screen or you go through a telephone, you distance the party that you are trying to get an answer from. No, when they meet you face to face, that's totally different because your face really says how you feel about things. And that's what I want. So hold on, we'll give you updates on that as time progresses. Barb says, this website where you are entering your email, how do you know they are legit, not using your email for other purposes? I asked the same question, Barb. And actually, they are legit. I looked them up. I'll find them. They do sell software, security software as well. They're a company, but they are legit. So yeah, but exactly, how do you know? You also know by their, if you look at their URL, if it's a fraudulent site, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a whole lot of extraneous characters in the URL, and it's going to be about this long. And that's usually a really good sign that it's not legit, because most companies, when they buy a domain name, they buy one that is short and says what they are, because they know no one's going to remember it to type it in, right? So, yeah. But it is a good thing. You never know, okay? So you should always be cautious. Derek says, I think these spammers are also using AI. A recent one had clearly checked which events I had been at and tried to use that info to convince me that they had met me. Thankfully, he made a big error. Oh, yeah, I think we're in for a really big problem with AI. Well, it's already happening. If you get a robocall, or what you think's a robocall, it's a recorded message, but that's being done by AI now. AI is everywhere. We can't escape it. And if you saw So Chatty this week, we talked about it in a little bit more detail in terms of how it, how it could be used in a more positive way, like for quilting or for other things too. There's a lot of benefits to AI. But, of course, the scammers out there are going to find a way to make our lives miserable using AI. Diana says, window issue. Time to call your attorney, sue for double the value plus attorney fees. This is ridiculous. That's an option. Haven't got there yet. I am thinking, though, of threatening with some of that. I mean, there's only people that benefit from when you call in the attorneys, as we all know, are the lawyers. You don't benefit, the business doesn't benefit, it costs you a lot of money, and the attorneys come out smelling like a rose. And I can only imagine what the retainer would be for something like this, because when I had to settle my mother's estate after she passed away, first thing that came out of their mouth was, okay, you need to write us a check for $3,000. So, before they would do anything at all. So, lawyers are pretty much scammers as well, in my opinion.
Plus, the way it works in Canada is people don't usually sue. You usually go to small claims court or something.
Yeah, you go to small claims court where you don't really have a lawyer per se. With that, it's a little different here in Canada, the legal system and how to do it. I know for the Americans, suing is a way of life. In Canada, not so much so. Although who knows how that may change. So anyways, that's all about email and stuff like that. So speaking of scammers, we were watching something on a television program last night. It's called, the program is a news program, an investigative news program. It's called W5. It's been on the air in Canadian television for hundreds of years, basically, ever since the invention of television, pretty much. And they were talking about foreign students, international students that come to Canada to get their education. Now, I had never really thought about this before, but I have really noticed, and this isn't something that's just started like last night or last week. This has been going on for quite a while. But we live very close to a university/college campus in our area. And now that school's back in, when you drive down by that campus, one of the main streets goes right by it. There are a lot of foreign students there, like a lot. In fact, finding, okay, this is going to sound bad, but finding the white one is sort of like looking for Waldo anymore. And there's a lot of them. Now, you know that, yes, Canada has a lot of immigrants in it. You know, like, it's one of the things we're famous for, right? But they're not usually highly concentrated in one area like this. So you kind of wonder, why are they, what's the appeal? Why are they all coming to Canada to get their education? And I know there are some answers to that, but what W5 was showing...
Yeah, I know when I went to college years ago, there was one or two students in my class that were foreign, but now it seems like the majority are...
The majority. That's what I mean. I'm not joking when I said about where's Waldo? Where's White Waldo on this? Well, they did a report, this W5, and apparently they're getting scammed. There are businesses right here in Ontario, the province I live in, that have representatives all around the world. A lot of them are concentrated in India, and they recruit students to come to Canada to get their education. Now, why do they do that? Well, some of these businesses are hired by universities and colleges, especially colleges, and not necessarily, although some of the mainstream colleges are doing it too, but a lot of them are private colleges. I didn't even realize that we had a lot of them, but apparently we do.
Yeah, well, but that one college that they featured on
St. Lawrence
was part of St. Lawrence.
Well, it was affiliated with them.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was really part, but whatever. St. Lawrence College is a big college east of us in a place called Kingston with it. But what they're doing is they're going into these countries and they are helping the students get a student visa and helping them supposedly getting into these universities. But they're charging up to 5 times the tuition for it. Now, foreign students have always had to pay more for tuition than, native Canadians, kind of a thing. But they're charging up to 5 times. And tuition's not cheap. And on top of it, they're charging them fees for helping them get a student visa, for arranging, to applications for these colleges, and helping them, making sure that they are able to understand English well. And what they're doing with that is they're just asking them a couple of questions on the telephone. And if they had an actual taped example of it on this program, the guy obviously did not understand English at all and said, okay, that's fine, you passed. So then these poor people are getting over here. These poor students are getting over here, already having paid all kinds of money for this. And they're getting into a class and they don't understand a word that's being said. In fact, they had 2 professors or college instructors they interviewed, and they said that oftentimes in their lectures, they hear students talking, whispering back and forth. And at first they didn't know what that was all about, found it quite annoying. Yes, I could see that. If it had been a high school class, we'd just turn around and say to them, shut up! But in college, they have a little bit more finesse, I guess. And I guess what they found out was there would be students who did not speak English, other students that could, and those other students were translating for these students that didn't speak English. Well, how are you going to get much of an education for that if you don't understand the language, right? I mean, if I went to India to get, and I wouldn't, but to get an education, I didn't speak their language, well, I'd be a little lost, wouldn't I? So they got that. Then on top of it all, they have to find some place to live, and they have to buy food, and all of that's expensive. And of course, there's landlords who rent out houses where they put up to like 10 to 16. This one girl they interviewed, she was living in a house where there were 16 foreign students, international students, living there. That was just wall-to-wall mattresses. In some cases, they said students rent a mattress and they sleep in shifts on the same mattress. Back and forth. Like, what? I couldn't believe this. What they're going through and the whole bit. And what's our government doing? Nothing. And in fact, one of these businesses that has well over 10,000 recruiters for this, were talking to our prime minister, and he was praising them for bringing foreign students over here, helping to bring foreign students here to an education because he thought that was a good thing. Not really. And of course, the universities are big businesses, so they want these students to come and pay all this money. Yeah. And apparently this is going on in the United States as well. It's not unique to Canada, and it's probably going on in England, and it's probably going on, they mentioned Australia as well. So this is not something that's a uniquely Canadian thing. It's happening all over the world. But I think our governments need to do a lot better job of regulating how these colleges and universities and these satellite ones that are basically, like one of them, the kids all protested because
they over-enrolled.
They over-enrolled. Yeah, they could only handle 400. They had over 2,000 enrolled. And what they did, they took the students' money and then deferred their classes to another time that was unspecified. So these students were out all of this money, these thousands of dollars, and nothing to show for it. So what are people talking about here? Kathy says we even have foreign students at West Point on scholarships. Yeah, that's kind of scary because West Point's kind of a military school, right? Derek says one issue is that universities use these international students as a major cash source, and the sad fact is that some of these students are not capable. Language skills is a big issue for many of them. Yeah, that's what they were saying on this program. And yeah, like basically universities and colleges are operating like a business. Derek says, I also sometimes question whether the person who shows up is the person who actually got the school qualifications list on their application. That is something they didn't touch on, but I have heard that you can rent a proxy and you actually don't go to the classes or anything like that. You may not even be in the country where you're supposedly getting the education. Somebody else is a stand-in for you and does basically all the work or whatever, and you get the diploma, but you haven't done any of it. But they charge big bucks for that, for people to do that. Diana's here. Derek says, I have Chinese students in pharmacology master's class who use Google Translate for the most basic things. It is so frustrating as there are kids desperate to study who can't for various reasons. Yeah, I mean, and you know what they also showed was the pressure from their parents. Their parents work really hard to try and get their kids over here to get an education because the idea is they'll have a better future, because then they'll be able to possibly stay in Canada or the United States, get decent jobs and that kind of thing. And so the kids are afraid that if they tell their families what's going on, that, you know, well, they feel guilty.
Yeah, they feel pressure. Yeah. That their parents have sacrificed and they get here and it isn't what they expect it to be. And so they lie to their parents because they don't want them to feel bad that things aren't going the way they expected.
But here's just another example of how this is why we have scammers, because there is nothing being done at the government levels, at all levels of government, to regulate these things, to put in laws in place where they can to stop this kind of behavior. I mean, you're never going to get rid of the scammers completely, but you can make their lives very, very difficult. And by the sounds of things, this is a very lucrative scam. They're making a lot of money, and there doesn't seem to be, and people know this is going on. So I must assume that the government, I mean, yeah, they're stupid turds, but they know, they hear, they have people, but they don't do anything about it. And when Trudeau is congratulating these guys, they were relatively young guys, for their business model, for what they're doing, wow, that makes our prime minister look really clever. Not at all.
Yeah, in fact, they even talked about how many these kids actually will commit suicide because they don't know how to cope.
One of the people that was interviewed is someone who acts as an advocate for these kind of students and he said they deal with I think it was in a place north of Toronto, they deal with a local funeral home there, and he said on any given month, they send bodies back to India or other countries of students who have committed suicide, 4 to 5 of them a month, because they can't afford living accommodation. They're being scammed out of money for their education. They have the parental pressure to achieve stuff, and they don't want to let their parents down. They turn to drugs, that kind of stuff. It plays on their mental health and the whole bit. Yeah. So why is our government ignoring this? Because that's what it seems. I have not heard anything of the government at any level stating, that this is a concern with it. In fact, they interviewed one guy. I forget what minister he was for. It was something. Oh, he was probably the minister of higher education or something. Or wealth. I don't know what he was the minister of. And he sat there and smiled through this guy's telling him this horrendous stuff. And he came back with, well, yeah, that's bad. Yeah, something should be done. Yeah. And that in his head he was going through making a shopping list that he needed to pick up a few things before he went home that night from work. No, really. I really feel bad for these kids and for their families. Kathy says, yes, it is. West Point Military Academy, Army. I believe this also happens at Annapolis, which is a U.S. Naval Academy. Hundreds of American kids are turned away every year. It doesn't seem right. No, and what I don't know. You can tell me, Kathy, because I don't know. Is there not a requirement that you have to enter the armed forces once you finish your education with them? Isn't that the deal, or is it? I don't know. I don't know if we have anything like that in Canada.
I don't know either.
Military college. I'm not sure. Yeah, it is, Colleen. It's all over sickening situation. Stacy says, a lot of international students at the university I work at talk about the family pressures they experience and the mental health toll it takes on them. Yeah, because those families believe in education. They're not like us with first world problems where the kids we have today, a lot of them, university is just a nice place to go if mom and dad's nickel to party. I know I have one in my family, kind of like that.
Like failing for these kids, the ones that are coming over here.
It doesn't matter.
No, I'm not talking about local kids. I'm talking about.
No, you mean? Oh, okay.
These kids have to achieve and have to pass. Like I know there was a girl in my class many, many years ago that was struggling. She was Asian and she was struggling to get through one of the courses. And she was like beside herself because she had to get this credit. She had to pass for her family. Her family was paying for her to go there. So
yeah. Well, Derek says, I've had to discipline such students for repeated plagiarism. And it's heartbreaking during the process when you realize how much their families have riding on them and what they're sacrificed for. Yeah, the ends justifies the means in this case, because, and with, we were talking about AI technology and the whole bit, like chat GPT can write you an essay and the whole bit. But yeah, they're probably out of the pressure of all of this, the fear of failure, for all the reasons we've already stated, I could see them turning to plagiarism and the whole bit, and that's making their situation even worse. And Kathy says, yes, that is a requirement in all 4 academies. So they do have to enter the military after they've gotten their education. But wait, they're foreign students. How does that work in the United States? You're putting foreign students into your military? I don't know. I don't know enough about that kind of thing, but to me that seems really weird, So I don't know. Karen says RMC in Kingston, I think. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, the Royal Military College. That's right, in Kingston. Stacy says, that Derek's saying, plagiarism is rapid in competitive programs. Yep, definitely I could see that. The temptation is there for them, And then that puts a lot of strain on the system too, because then professors have to detect it. And, there are some programs you can use that help you with it. But What a pain in the butt. I mean, I had to do that when I was teaching high school. And, that was no near the level of what it is at university. So, yeah, I pity the university professors and college instructors. So anyways, I just thought that was something that was very eye-opening. Never thought about that, but now it makes sense when I see all these ones crossing the street to get to classes, and it's like hordes of it. And I wish they'd learn how to use a traffic light to cross properly. They're all jaywalking. Someone's going to get killed because they're going across 4 lanes of road from the parking lot in the university, and they are not taking the lights. Oh God, it would kill them to walk an extra 20 feet to get to the lights and wait for the light. Car hitting them will kill them too. So, Derek says, I have realized I have a meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow with an international student who has failed their medical degree. It's undergraduate in the UK, and we now have to find an alternative route for them. Yeah, well, wouldn't want that one working on me. Kat says, I can't swear to that, but I believe they too owe years to the U.S. military. It used to be 6 years and then went to 5 years, but I don't know what it is now. Hi, Lucy. Sue says foreign students at military schools are on scholarship to serve in their own country's military. So I wonder how one, hi Jeannie, I wonder how one earns a scholarship for military college when you are a foreign student. The mind is boggled right now. Like, a lot of that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. How that works, why that works, whatever. Well, it's another mystery. So, moving away...
Unless the scholarship is only a portion of the fee that you have to pay to...
Maybe, but why would a student in a foreign... Well, I guess maybe that comes from their own country. I don't think...
I know that lady I used to do stained glass for, she got her kids on scholarships at universities in the U.S., but it was to play sports or something.
Okay, but was that money coming from the university?
Well, I don't know. They had to pay a certain amount of money too.
Or was it a scholarship that was offered by an institute here in Canada?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, there's tons of scholarships out there, and I really never really looked into how many of them, like what they do, how they works, but whatever. But to move us slightly away from this conversation and move it into another political arena. Yeah, you've heard us talk before about, we have 3 major political parties in this country: the Liberals, the NDP, and the Conservatives, or as commonly referenced, the Conservatives are the equivalent of the Southern Republicans in the United States. So that gives you a reference point, okay? The Conservative Party is in power right now in Ontario at the provincial level, but at the federal level, the Liberals are in power. Of course, the Conservatives, well, any opposition party, they're only as good as their next election. So they're always trying to topple the government for an election, and they're always trying to shore up their policies and guidelines and things so that when the next election comes, they can say, this is what we're going to do if we're in power, and, basically scam, because they are scammers too, scam the public into voting for them. So they had a big convention this weekend of the Conservative and those people who are card-carrying members of the Conservative Party, which basically, if you pay the fees, you become a card-carrying member and you have the right to vote at one of their huge conventions for their policies that they're going to, what they would do if they got into power. Well, it's scary. Very scary.
Yeah, because the group that's in at federal level is very right-wing.
Very right-wing.
Evangelical type people.
They're the Christian right with it. But before we talk about their stupidity and what they're trying to do, which is the scary part of it all, if you saw my vlog this past week, I talked a little bit about the LGBT community, and I actually did sort of an apology and showed my ignorance, because the week before that, I talked about all of these people in the LGBT community that are constantly whining and fighting for this right and that right, and that we have it really good in Canada. We have a human rights code that protects members of the LGBT community, and we have hate laws and things like that, like laws against hate speech and stuff like that. And then I realized, as I did more research, we have a real problem in this country. Now, and this all stemmed from when we discussed, I think it was last week or whatever, about the travel advisory that was put out by our government to LGBTQ people traveling in certain states of the United States and all of that kind of stuff. Well, I was wrong. And I said that in the vlog this week. We still have a long way to go. I saw it from, I hate to say it, an old cis white male's point of view. I mean, as a gay man, I'm not having any problems. But I'm not black. I am not an immigrant. I am not transgendered. I am not female. I am not a whole lot of other things that are out there. And I was just had my head buried in the sand, I guess. But I have educated myself about it, and I guess the fight goes on. And it's happening in the United States as well. And so there are the trend right now from the far right, like this conservative party I'm talking about, is to take away what we already have and to hate us. And hate us because we're undercutting family values and everything else. So Walter did a little bit of research and looked at some of their main policies there.
Yeah, I mean, like they had this policy setting thing this weekend, like a conservative convention and whatever, and they came up with these approximately 30 actually values that they put out or whatever that supposedly define them, and actually most of them were pretty normal kind of ones, but then there's a few that they seem to be picking on things like you think that there would be more there would be bigger issues that they should be looking at than what the things that they were looking at. So,
yeah, like a lot
like
of
I mean, they didn't really touch on the economic policy or anything like that or homelessness or
homelessness
or you know the
inflation,
you know, like refugee things or anything like that. They didn't touch any of that. So but they did. It did a couple of other things, and I expect they'll probably get raked over the coals for it. But I mean, which they will, because to me, I think they were stupid things that they touched on.
Well, for example,
which one should I bring up first?
Well, talk about the one where they're trying to about the transgender kids.
Okay, one thing they were talking about is like one of the things that if you work for a business, a lot of times they'll have training for you for with racism, diversity training, or with LGBTQ, they'll have training about sensitive issues like trans or LGBTQ people or something like that. So they said that they want to support the end of forced political, cultural, and ideology training of any kind at the workplace. So, such as mandatory diversity training and other such programs.
So basically what they're saying is, if a lot of businesses, when you first they get hired, or a condition of being hired is that you have to take a training course about the company's policies, and usually companies in that deal with the public have this quite a bit, and making you sensitivity training to diversity within a community. So that would mean they would talk to you about how to deal with people that that are members of the LGBT community, or people who are transgendered, or indigenous people, or people of a specific religious or ethnic background. All these things is part of that training. What they're saying is, if you refuse on religious grounds or on philosophical beliefs, for example, You might be a very extreme Muslim, and you're getting this job, and they're saying, okay, well, you have to accept the fact and work with people that come from the LGBTQ community. And if they're very extreme, they'll know that you don't work with those people. You have nothing to do with them. So what they're saying is they have an out clause. They can turn around and say, well, no, I'm not going to take that training. And basically, if they didn't hire you because you didn't take the training, you could come back on and say, but the government says you cannot discriminate against me because of my religious beliefs or because I didn't believe in that training, so I didn't take it. That opens up a can of worms, doesn't it? So what else that they...
Yeah, so the other one was a thing about trans youth. Like if you are a young person and are I forget what they call it. You are going through a situation.
Well, transition.
A transition, or you're questioning your gender identity.
Yeah. On a very serious level.
On a serious level. They were saying that physicians are not allowed to administer any kind, regardless of whether you have parental consent or not, any kind of medical treatments that will help you down your path.
Like hormones.
Yeah.
Hormone treatment or anything like that, right up to possibly surgery. But, and so they're saying that doctors can't do it. Well, I would think that those people who are seriously feel that, that they are definitely the sex they were not born into, that, a doctor is who you would probably want to consult about all of this, right?
Yeah, well, so I would think to myself that that's like a medical issue. Like, so you would be consulting with a doctor with that. But now what they're saying is the government's trying to say, well, no, you can't do that at all. Yeah. If you're underage.
Yeah, they're just kiboshing it. Now, okay, so...
I mean, obviously this hasn't passed yet.
No, these are just suggestions. They haven't passed this yet in their convention. However, okay, think of a young person. Think of someone who's 10 or 12 years old questioning their sexual identity, and they really feel that they
No, this isn't sexual. This is gender.
Okay, well, gender identity. Okay, I'm sorry, that's what I meant. But I guess I have to be careful on the terminology here, right? So gender, all right? So a little boy, a 10-year-old boy, really feels that he is a girl. He wants to be female in the whole bit. Who does he talk to? I mean, let's say his parents are sympathetic to this and they want to get him the help and the guidance that he needs, and they know they can't provide it because they're not the professionals here.
Okay, you said 10, but what about 16-year-old?
Okay, but let me finish. Yeah, 10 or 12 with this. But they're saying they can't even go and get counseling. Okay? Because anybody who would be a counselor for this, a legit counselor for this kind of thing, is probably a psychiatrist. And they are doctors. Okay? So they're saying, no, they can't have this kind of counseling. They can't have this kind of help. Okay, if they're 16 years old. Now, I would say that a 10-year-old telling you this, I don't think you're really going to, as a parent. I mean, I couldn't see myself really saying to a kid,
however,
let's give you hormones, but we're not
medical professionals.
No, we're not. So that's why you would want to take them to a medical professional. But this policy would say, no, can't do that either. No. A 16-year-old would have a better idea than a 10-year-old of it. But nevertheless, they can't either. So in Canada, I guess they would consider that once you hit 18, you are a legal adult. So then you can do it. But that may have already, if they've had absolutely no counseling or any guidance or any help with this issue whatsoever, this could really play with their mental well-being. And we already have a mental health crisis, so they tell us, going on. So this would just compound that. So really, you look towards your government. If the conservatives were in power, you look towards your government for guidance and help that's to the benefit of the citizens of a country. Refusing to allow them to get the help they need on a physical and mental level on something like this is not helping, to say the least. So that's crazy. Let's just stop for a second because I know a lot of people are saying some things here and I want to back up before it goes right off the screen. Let's just see here. I'm trying to catch up. Oh, Sue said that foreign students at military schools are on a scholarship to serve in their own country's military. Okay, but then do they still have to do service for the United States? You know, that seems to be about it. And Sue says their government pays our government for the privilege. Okay, so there's a deal there or something. Lucy said she taught Chinese and Japanese, Korean, Thai students in public school in the UK. They all worked in English. A lot did study maths. Yeah, I think the maths and the sciences are very much pushed upon Chinese and Japanese and that kind of thing. Of course, it might make sense too, because why would a Chinese student, how would a Chinese student benefit from learning American or Canadian literature in detail? They want jobs in the technical fields, I think. And so you need math, you need science. I don't know, Diane, how schools are going to cope. They're not. They're not coping now, really. Kathy says, I don't know how they get there because it's really grueling process to get in as a citizen. They have to have an appointment from a senator, president, VP, etc. That must be in the States. I think it's easier in Canada. By the looks of things, it looks like it's easier. Hi, Laurel. Sue says, we train military leaders across the world. Interesting. There's a topic. Kathy says students are paid a stipend to go there, but it is small and they must pay for their uniforms and laundry, etc. And Lucy says, I think the LGBT community is now more than just gay now. I'm interested in why all these different groups are grouped together. Well, yeah.
That's a whole can of worms.
It's a whole, yeah, that's a can of worms. I don't even think we should be using initials in any of this anymore because it is so diverse within the LGBTQ, whatever you want to call it, thing that, yeah, one size does not fit all. They're all different groups. They all have different agendas. You're right. Colleen says, now that W5 has talked about students, can they do one on temporary foreign workers, which the UN has compared to an alternate slavery? Yeah, probably that's next on. I'm sure that they may have already done something like that. I don't know. I don't watch W5 on a regular basis. Melissa is probably a psychologist, yeah. Glenna says Missouri just recently passed a law to not allow hormone therapy for minors or adults who are on government-assisted Medicaid. I mean, in one way, to play devil's advocate, I can see why you just don't want to give any kid who says, I feel like a girl, I feel like a guy, and I'm not one of those, and let's give them hormones. I mean, I'm sure they don't do it that way. But you know what I mean is, does a kid, brings up the whole question, does a kid really have the emotional and mental maturity to make that decision? But then on the other hand, should somebody else be making that decision for them? I don't know. Should the government be making those decisions? I don't think so. I think that's a decision that needs to be made by the individual and by their family as well, under the guidance of medical professionals.
Yeah.
With it. Derek says, all the major problems in the world we can worry about, and these right-wing parties focus on making minority groups a threat. I want politicians who will just leave people alone to live their lives. Yeah, you know, I think it's called distraction.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is that these, like, well, I would just said about the kids and stuff. That's a very small percentage of the population.
Yeah, really. It's they're making it sound like it's an epidemic out there or something. But it's not. Melissa says it does play with their mental health on a daily basis. Oh, yeah, I'm sure it does. I wonder when trans women are going to insist on organ donation for ovaries and uteruses. Don't say it will never get to that point.
Huh?
Are you talking about actually getting viable ovaries and uterus?
I don't think technically you'd be able to do that.
No, I don't think so. I don't know. But then never say never. Who knows? Lucy says, I believe a couple of clinics in the UK have been criticized for doling out hormones to minors, teachers advising without letting the parents know. Yeah.
Yeah, but then there is a movement that, like kids in Canada right now, if you're 12-year-old, can get your own vaccination. 14, you can get an abortion
without your parents' consent.
Without your parents' consent.
Which I just found out about. I didn't know that.
So, do you need your parents' consent for everything?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're 15 or whatever and you bugger off and don't live with your parents, what do you...
Yeah, and I would almost think that the ones that are at 14 and that are going for an abortion, there is a lot more to that than just like, what are the circumstances that have led up to them being in that situation in the first place? And I think you have to look at their home life. You have to look at other factors as well. But, but furthermore about the transgendered people with this, they were talking about...
Okay, now there's another extreme here of transgender-related policy that 87% to support a plan to demand single-sex spaces that are only open to women.
So,
which the party now defines as a female person. Right? With the adoption of the policy is intended to keep transgender and gender diverse people out of women's prisons, shelters, locker rooms, and washrooms. So they said that a woman will be considered a biologically born woman.
Yeah.
So
okay, now let's pull this apart for a second here. There was a couple of things that you kind of read over quickly, and I want to back up on. Read the very first part of that again.
Another transgender related policy, delegates voted whatever. Anyway, to support a plan to demand single sex spaces that are only open to women.
Okay, stop right there. There's several things wrong with that. Okay, single sex spaces. What are single-sex spaces? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is washrooms, public washrooms. Okay? So you have men's, you have the ladies. Now, we already know there's controversy over whether or not a trans female or a trans female should use a woman's washroom. A trans female means they were born a male, they identify as female. They may or may not be completely a female biologically, and they may be just, this is how they identify, this is how they live their life. They live their life as a female, but they still have male reproductive organs. Okay? Well, what's the big boo-hoo there? Like, what's the problem? First of all, ladies' washrooms are stalls. They have a door. What anybody is doing when they're doing their business is not, it's a washroom. We know what goes on in a washroom. They're going to the bathroom. Okay. Why is that a problem? Okay. How about, what they don't talk about is a trans male, which is female to male. They don't say anything about that.
Yeah. So I guess basically the way it reads here is females can have all their own spaces, but anybody can use a male bathroom.
Yeah, basically is what they're saying. So, and then then go on to the next thing right after that.
So the policy is to keep transgender and other gender diverse people out of women's prisons, shelters, locker rooms, and washrooms.
Okay, but there was a line in there.
Actually, there was another spot that isn't listed here, but they also include playing in women's teams.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, but they were referring to female persons, or what was the phrase?
They call it defined as a female person.
A female person. what other kind of females are there? Female dog, female cat, female person. Is there some females that are not persons? That sounds sexist.
Yeah, the other thing is that they call it biological women, meaning that they were born
A woman.
as a woman.
Yeah, okay. So the other thing about like keeping them out of sports and things like that. Well, we know that debate's been going on. Okay. They're saying that if male to female, a transgendered woman playing on a team that's female, have an unfair biological advantage. But that shouldn't matter in this day and age. Women should be able to compete in most sports equally with men. It has to do with training, physical training, all that kind of stuff. That's an old holdover from the old days where women play on one team, men play on a different team. You have like saying that they're because they're the weaker sex. Like I think of golf, and if you go and play golf, the ladies' tee is closer to where you're shooting the ball than the men's. Well, why? Well, the argument's always been that men are stronger so they can hit the ball further. I thought golf was more based upon skill, but there's other sports too. Okay, like I don't know. That's to suggest that women are not as physically equal to men. I don't know. I suppose there's a debate in there. Okay, what else did they say?
Well, no, they just said it was biological women have a space to call their own.
Okay, biological women have a space to call their own. Are biological women right now not able to have a space of their own? What does that mean? It excludes men. Okay, well, you have gym facilities that are strictly for women, not for men. Which I have a whole problem with that too. But anyways, that's a discussion for another day. What other places specifically for biological women are there?
Well, they're talking about women prisons,
Okay.
shelters, I guess.
Okay. Actually,
locker rooms.
All right. Well, locker rooms, again, that goes with gym stuff. Okay, well, I get that. I can understand. I don't think you want to put women in a prison that has men in it as well. Because, let's face it, a lot of those men... Yeah,
but if you're transitioned to a woman...
Okay, so they're talking about transitioning for... Okay, if you transition to be a woman, and they put you... I think they almost have to have another prison for transgender, because if you put a transgendered woman in a man's penitentiary, that person is going to get sexually abused, to say the least, beat up the whole bit.
But what about women?
But you put them in a women's prison. What
about biologically women? If you're a biological... Okay, let's just take this for instance. If you're born a biological woman, right, and you transition to a man, it says here that you can use women's facilities because you're a biological woman.
Yeah, I know, but you just now skipped over from the one issue that I was talking about. In the prison system, I think it would be bad in either a man's or a woman's prison for any transgender person, no matter which way they go. Yeah. Because, like those are criminals that you have in there, right? So I think that's just setting them up for additional abuse and things like that. But now this part that you were saying, what was that again?
Well, okay, let's say you're a biological woman and you transition to a man.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't cover that.
No, they don't talk about that. It's like there's no such thing as a woman becoming a man. There's only men becoming women.
Yeah.
Which would suggest that their little heads are in the back because a man wore a skirt, he must be a woman. Like a drag queen or something like that. I don't know. It's these people.
Yeah, like basically what this is telling me is that the Conservative Party have no idea what trans
Yeah, they're ignorant. They're ignorant of it all. So what people saying here, lots of conversation going on. Julie says, physicians say the human brain is still developing and growing until the age of 25. So you'd be suggesting there, Julie, from that, that basically anybody under the age of 25 should not be allowed to make decisions for themselves. I think there'd be a lot of 23, 24, 25-year-olds who would disagree with that. I have read that the brain keeps developing at 25, up to 25 or whatever. Yeah.
Well, maybe you should wait till you're 80 before you can decide.
Yeah. I think you could also make an argument that what constitutes an adult brain, a mature brain, because everybody matures differently. And really, what is maturity? There's a question for you. What's the definition of maturity? And how many of us fit it? Sometimes we're very mature. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes you feel like a nut. Barb says, how do you feel about a man, born a male, who transitions to a female and competes against females in sports? Quite frankly, I don't have a problem with it because I don't care about sports.
Yeah, same here. And the other thing is, how do you feel about somebody born a male that transitions to a woman?
Yeah.
Or no, sorry. How do you feel about someone that's a woman that's born a woman and transitions to a male competing in male sports?
And let's put it down to an even more simple level. How do you feel about men in the quilting world who compete with females in the quilting world in a quilt show? Because is quilting not a female thing? Haven't females dominated that forever, and now men are coming into it? Okay. I mean, I know it's a little minor thing. It's not on the same scale.
There's this assumption that men are stronger than women.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I know lots of women that are fairly strong and large and competitive. So, maybe they should have categories as to weak people.
Like in weightlifting or in wrestling or something like that, they have categories, right? That you don't take a 350-pound all solid muscle guy and put him up in a wrestling ring with a guy who weighs 140 pounds soaking wet, although he's in great physical shape. They don't do that, except maybe in extreme fighting. I don't know. With that, again, I don't follow it. But I don't really get too uptight about the whole sports thing. And here's why I don't. And it's a topic for another day. I think sports are stupid. I really do. And why I say they're stupid is not because of the sport or whatever. It's because of how much energy and time and effort and emotional spending we put into sports. As if people who play sports are heroes because they won a big award, whatever, and that kind of stuff. But we're not going to talk about that. That's a whole different show on that kind of thing. So I don't really care whether a transgendered person is playing in a particular sport that is traditionally something that was for one sex or the other. I don't care. Not bothering me. Purple Wall says, in Iowa, teachers have to report to parents if their children want to go by a nickname that's opposite of their gender. Yeah, I'm not sure here in Ontario whether that has come to the forefront or not. It didn't while I was teaching, but that was 11 years ago when I retired, so I don't know what the new trend is now. I would never out a student to his parents if I found out that they were gay or lesbian or something like that. Not my responsibility for that. I can be supportive of them, but I am not going to take a risk that if I called up a parent and said, oh, by the way, Johnny is gay, that Johnny might get beaten up or abused. So I'm not going to put a student in that position. And
I don't think teachers should have the responsibility of reporting to parents about that.
I don't think so. It's already teachers have a responsibility to report a suspected child abuse situation, and if you don't, you can be charged for not reporting it, and that's a fine line because I had to report that and I did, but I was always before I reported it, I would ask certain leading questions or for the student to find out, like they'd come in, this is the third black eye this month. What's going on? I said, well, what's happened? Are you on a team? Are you playing football or whatever? And see how they react to that kind of stuff. But something like a nickname, want to go by a nickname. If a student walked into my class and his name was Fred, and he said, from now on, I want to be called Frederica, I'd say, okay, I'll call you anything you want as long as it's not a swear word. And I'm not going to report it to parents, and I don't think a school should be reporting that kind of thing. Because what good is that going to do? Kids change their names all the time when they're at school. I mean, they'll use a shortened form or they like a nickname. It has nothing to do with transgender at this point. And I've been in parent-teacher nights and I said, oh, such and such. And they go, oh, you mean, and they'll give the right name. And I go, oh, okay, I didn't know that was it. This is what they asked me to call them. And I've never really had a parent who ever turned around and said, well, they're not going to be called that. You'll call them this. Okay, I've never had a problem with that. But, I mean, that's somebody that wasn't transgendered. But I think it's squealing. I don't think it's the place of the school to squeal on a kid. You might want to refer the child to the guidance department. Say, like, Fred's just announced to me that he wants to be called Frederica. Do you know, like, in the guidance department, is there something I need to know here? Is there whatever? And, they'd probably say something to the fact, no, well, maybe I'll go and I'll speak to them, the guidance counselor, because they're trained more so than the average classroom teacher for that kind of thing. So the onus would be on them to investigate it further and see if there is a need to bring parents in on this or not. I think that's what should. But just to make a blanket statement and say, if a kid wants to use a nickname that's the opposite gender of what they really are, then you must report it. No, I don't like that. Lucy says, railway stations used to have ladies' waiting rooms back in the day in the UK ahead of time. Yeah, well, in Canada too, there was, if you went to a bar, the bar would be split. There would be a ladies, escorted ladies. A lady couldn't go into a bar without a gentleman with her. But that was back in the time of, severe and extreme sexism. So, Shelley says, public washrooms in the U.S. are not very private. I think they should create doors to the stalls that you can't look through.
So, do you think people look through the stalls? The other thing is
perverts.
What about lesbians? Lesbians are allowed to go into this thing, and lesbians are attracted to other women. So, are you not self-conscious that you're sitting in a stall and a lesbian might be looking at you?
Yeah, true.
I mean, most of the people, the men that are transitioning to be a woman, are just going to the bathroom like everybody else to go to the bathroom. They're not going in there to look at other women.
And that's the thing that some of these people that are living with their heads in a hole turn around and say, oh, well, they're going to do sexually perverted things in there. No more than anybody else. In that kind of case. And Lucy's doing the same thing. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm assuming the gaps are the same in the men's bathroom as in the women's. And I can't see very much if I'm sitting in a stall out and except for somebody's feet necessarily. I mean, if someone's sticking their head underneath the door on there and go, hello, what's this all about? Yeah. But I do sort of agree that I think public washrooms are very primitive and they need to be upgraded. And I do believe, because I have a public washroom phobia to a certain extent, I do not like using them. If I can avoid it, I will. And I would be much better off if a man's washroom was designed without urinals. They are the most disgusting thing on the face of the planet. And that's a whole show in itself why I have a phobia with urinals. And I think it should all be stalls, and I think it should be a little room. I think it should have a door that, there's no gaps under it, nothing. You go in there, you can lock the door and do your business in private with it. I agree with that. I think public washrooms are very medieval with it all. Julie says, person could include grown women and underage girls.
Yeah, well, bathrooms
Well,
are
yeah,
used by both.
both and that, yeah. What about those few people, Lucy says, who are born in between genders? Their XY chromosomes do not follow the usual pattern. Well, we were talking about that. I mean, it's rare, but it does happen. Yeah, but there again,
Well,
I saw something about that. It's a very controversial issue. There have been people at birth who have both genitalia, and it's been really left up to either the parents of the infant right then before they even go home from the hospital, or a few months later, or the doctor to determine the sex. And now there's a movement saying that if this, there are, for those kind of people, they should wait until they start to exhibit behaviors of one sex predominantly, and then the discussion should be had with medical authorities and everything. If, you know, now it would be a good time to make the change, whatever needs to be done, or whatever. What were you going to say?
well, no, I don't know what I was going to say.
No, lost your train of thought. Senior happens. Even an average male athlete had physical advantages to an excellent female athlete. Well, Julie, that may be so. I don't care. Quite frankly, this does not bother me one way or another. I have
That's where
I have no opinion on it.
That's where I say is you have categories.
Yeah.
You are evaluated that you're all one of this part and one of that part, and
I'll be honest, I have very little respect for athletes. Period. Oh, I'm going to get emails about that.
And then that's where you get on the whole fact is, should we be separating men from women? Like, why are we doing that?
Yeah. And women are not as strong as men overall. There's of course no, that's not true. That is not true. They have proven it, that given the right training and the whole bit, women can be as strong as men or stronger. That has been proven. That is an old tale from the old days, you know, where men are men and women are women. Okay, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's not true. Melissa said they would need a separate facility for sure. Okay, I've lost the train of thought there. They would need a separate facility for sure.
Oh, maybe prisoners that we were
Prisoners
talking
or something? Yeah, that could be. Yeah. Christine. Hi, Christine. Women are biologically different from men. The differences in strength and size are real. The differences in size are real. Women can be trained to be as strong as a man given a specific type of sport that they're training for. Yeah, they can be. Derek says, not sure how you'd police access to some of these women-only spaces.
Maybe,
There could be a trans people who could not tell had been born with a different biological sex. How would they know? I'm not sure I understand.
No, okay, let's say a man has transitioned to a woman and he's gone through the operation and everything else.
Oh,
and
how
you,
would you
and you wouldn't necessarily know that that's happened, right?
In fact, there are some that still have all of the features of the sex they were born as, but you have a hard time figuring out what sex they really are, or they call it passable. And I'm not just talking in clothing and makeup. We knew a couple of drag artists at one time. One was a transgendered woman, and the other one was a transgender male. The one that was a transgendered female did female impersonations, but she'd been on hormone treatments and everything, and even when she wasn't dressed up in her outfits for her performances, when she was just looking like everyday, wearing her everyday clothes, you could not tell that she was not
female.
A female. Well, she still had
her male parts.
Yeah. And her partner, who was it got really complicated, was a transgendered male, looked like
a man.
In fact, a really good looking man too. You could not tell. And yeah. And they I don't know how that worked out in their relationship. I really don't. That boggles your mind if you really start to think about it. But you couldn't really tell. And I think a lot of people think that a transgendered woman is just a guy in a dress with bad makeup. No, not necessarily.
There's lots of women that wear bad makeup.
Yeah, too. So yeah.
Yeah, like and there's also a thing that people think that because they were once a man, that they are or once had male parts, that they would be sexually active with females or something.
Yeah.
So
Julie says nobody should be making a trans decision without counsel and understanding from medical and psychological experts regardless of brain age. Yeah, I agree with that. But, most, unless they're a charlatan, I don't think a trans person could go to any medical professional at any age and say, okay, I want to be changed over exactly to this because I identify. They're not going to do that. They're going to recommend that there's stages to all of this. They're going to recommend a mental assessment, psychological help. All that kind of stuff.
I know what used to be. I don't know if it still is true, but if you were said that you wanted to be a woman, you went to a psychologist. There were several psychologists that would have to look after you and everything, and you would have to live as the opposite sex for at least 2 years.
I don't know if that still is
before you could actually go any further.
Yeah. And that was the way to make sure that you can mentally handle it all. Stephanie says, as long as it's not Peter Byrne bring on the male quilters. Yeah, true. Yes, but Julie, what I am saying is that, and what I'm hearing in here is some people still falling back on the old-fashioned traditional definitions of what is a male and what is a female, and are placing limitations on those people because of their sex, in terms of their physical abilities and thing. And I'm saying, from what I've read and everything, I mean, you're not going to get a whole lot of people. You're not going to get like a league of Amazons.
We're talking less than 1% of the population. Yeah. You're talking a very small portion. You're not talking about you're going to get like whole teams of transgenders or something.
Yeah. Stephanie says, too much emphasis placed on sports. They get millions for playing a game. They aren't solving world hunger. Exactly, Stephanie. That's what I think too. Shelley says, what do you do about Sam for Samantha or similar name? Well, I don't understand your question, Shelley. What do you do? If a girl came up to me in class, if you're going back to that, and said, I'd call out Samantha Brown, and she'd go, I prefer Sam. I'd say, fine. Because that's not a good example. Because Samantha, we all know.
Yeah, I know. But
Samantha is a lot of times shortened to Sam. Yeah, but if a Stephen walked into the classroom and said, I am not Stephen, I am Stephanie, I still wouldn't go to their parents about it.
But you see, you're talking about female names and male names. What if it's a name that doesn't...
Chris.
Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shithead.
Yeah. That one's easy. How do you shorten that? Shit. Barb says, I could care less about the sports thing too. I was just asking. My opinion is let people do what they want. Yeah, that's what I say too, Barb, really. In the 21st century, I think we have to get over these. I mean, there's barriers already in our society that we've been fighting against, or people have been, barriers that keep women out of certain positions in the workforce and things like that. There's barriers for men that keep them out from being, doing things that are maybe a little bit more creative or seen as something that's more female. It's time to get rid of all of those kind of barriers. And what this government is doing, or this political party doing, is they're going backwards in time. They're making it seem like these things are a threat to our well-being in our society. They could talk about family values. That's all bullshit. There is no way that anybody who's a transgendered person or in the LGBT community is a threat to family values. In fact, they all have their own family values as well, which deserve to be supported as much as anybody else's in society. Christine says sports can help kids out of trouble. Yeah. I'm not saying sports are a bad thing. I'm saying I don't follow sports, and it's professional sports. I think there's too much emphasis placed on the value of professional sports in our society, is what I'm saying. I'm not a sports enthusiast. There are some benefits to sports, but as Stephanie has said, and I agree, it doesn't solve world hunger. I don't say get rid of them. You know, if you want to play a sport, play a sport. If you like watching a sport, watch a sport. Just keep it in perspective. You know, like, don't be like the conservatives here. Jeannie says other cultures have males who quilt and sew. For example, the tent makers of Cairo, who make beautiful quilts to decorate and protect tent walls. Exactly. Colleen says, what it's telling me, Walter, is who I won't be supporting. Yeah, for sure. Agree with you on that one, Colleen. Derek says, interesting point about kids' names at schools. Went through 7 years of primary school with a classmate called Benny. Was only as we were enrolling for high school we heard his real name was Hugh. Yeah? Well, I wanted to be called by my middle name when I was much younger, but that never happened because I didn't really insist upon it. I thought Eric was a better name than Stephen. But, you know, kids go through phases of that. Melissa says, exactly. It was always left up to the parents to choose the gender of an intersex baby. What a huge decision. Yeah, you want to make sure you've made the right one, right? I think you definitely need consultation with that. Yeah, it is doctors who decide it guiding the parents. Well, yeah, but a reasonable doctor is not going to say, yeah, just lop off the penis and make it a girl, whatever, move on next day. No, I think those doctors are going to ask a lot of key questions of the parents and everything and talk about the repercussions. Like, this is a decision that's somewhat irreversible, you know, and how it can affect the child growing up, their psychology, their emotions, their mentality, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not an easy decision. You just don't make a snap decision, I don't think. If you're a thinking person, a reasonable person, you don't make a snap decision on something like that. That's going to affect another human being's life for all time. Lucy says, in the UK NHS, you used to have to live as the other gender for 2 years before surgery. I know, I guess. I know a chap who did this quickly, privately, then later regret the decision to have surgery too late. Yeah, well, I think there's something about like a cooling off period. Really? Yeah. Shess, I was responding to the person whose state makes them report names. Where do you draw the line? Too hard for the teachers to administer. Yeah, exactly, Shelley. It is too much for that. But, you know, here it is. Politicians, and we're going to wind this down now because we're running out of our time. We're past our time. But that whole thing with the conservative government, what I'm saying is that is a government I would not want to be in power because they're dictators. They are trying to decide what, in their little pea brains, what is best for the citizens of the country they are governing. And the key word there is govern. Govern means to guide, to help, to assist. These kind of things they want to do are not assisting, are not helping. They're making people, well, they're basically affecting, or if they were in power, they're basically affecting the quality of a person's life, their mental stability, their emotional stability, all of that. We cannot have people like that in power. And we've seen the United States has given us a prime example of what can happen when you get somebody who thinks he knows what's right for the rest of the country and doesn't consult other people. And do I need to name the devil? Trump. You know what kind of hell he put people through with it, and what he did to the United States as well. And now he's got another run at it. You're right. He's a criminal, but whatever. But that's a conversation for another day as well. So anyways, that's it for us today. A little bit political, I would say. We got into it, but you know, that's how we roll sometimes here. So thanks everybody for joining in and giving us your thoughts on these issues as well. Always much appreciated. And of course, if you have more thoughts about these things, feel free to write them in the comments below. Be kind, because I'll delete you on that. But we'll take a look next week. For next week's show, we'll take a look at what people have said about this. So have a great day, the rest of you, what's left of it and everything, and I hope you have a good week, and we'll see you next week, if not soon.